Hey guys, in this video we're going to go over the very basics of how to file the U column for your filing your taxes worksheet. Now this is going to be a very interesting column for you guys to cover because it really pertains to you and what it would take for you to file your taxes, well, at any time and before April. So for some of you guys, that's going to be right now. And for other people watching this later, they're going to realize that they're going to have to be watching this or be filing it after December 31st. So real quick, when you're filing your taxes to tell the government how much money you owe them. Now, most of you guys already, when you got your job and filled out a W-4, you said, hey, government, take a certain amount of money out of my paycheck. So when my taxes are due, I don't have to find that money somewhere and pay it back. But as of right now, if you make less than $12,500, you owe the government zero in federal income taxes, which would mean that if you paid any federal income taxes and made less than $12,500, you get all of it back. So you want to file your taxes so that you can get the money that you overpaid back from the government. Now you need to do this correctly. You will be assuring many times over that the information you gave is correct, and you can be held criminally and financially liable if it's not. So let me teach you and give you guys some tips to do a simple tax return, particularly for you in this video. Later on, we're going to get a persona with a much more complicated tax situation, and we'll go over how to fill that out. So let's explain this worksheet. Already, you should probably have your name, date, and period at the top. And under you, and this entire column here, you're going to be filling out as it pertains to you. Now, I'll give you some tricks and answer a few questions you might have of if you didn't have a job and whatnot. But you need to keep it realistic or true. All right. So what you're going to be doing here is we're only filling out the you column in this video. So watch along, answer the questions as they pop up, and make sure you're on your worksheet answering stuff too. You've got all class, you'll have plenty of time. So these questions here are the questions that you would actually have to file if you filed your return online or on paper, but that's not done much anymore, and it's free for most low-income people to do online. So let's go over what these questions are. And remember, you're only filling in the you column now. When you have your persona papers, you're going to write your persona's name here and fill that out later, but in a different video. So let's do the you one. Remember, this is what you, as a teenager in school, would be answering for these questions. So answer it as you really would. If you want to go look at your W-2 and find answers for this, that's fine. But remember, you don't have to. Just keep it realistic, because then if you don't, I might ask you to prove it. No ridiculous answers. That's a rule. Okay, the first question you'll often see is, are you filing single or married? Well, if you were single as of December 31st of this year, you put in single. If you're married before then, you can file married, but it's optional. So put single, kids. All right, the next one is, are you head of household? To be head of household, you cannot have someone paying for most of your expenses. So that is room, that is food, that is rent, that is your car insurance. Pretty much you should be putting no. Now, when are you going to be head of a household or a dependent? I would say best advice, talk to your parents about it. If they're paying for your expenses while you're in college, you are still going to be a dependent, which will be there in number 4. But as you go on, as they pay less and less of your expenses, just make sure you're communicating with them, because if they're claiming you as a dependent, but you're claiming yourself as an independent, you both could have a few little issues you might need to deal with. So let's go over what each of these means. So are you head of household? No. All right, the next one there is, what was your age as of December 31st, 2022? That's of the year you are filing your taxes for. So go ahead and put that age. You guys are just going to write in pencil, right on the papers in front of you, what's in right there as it pertains to you. All right, now we get into sort of the meat of these questions. Can someone claim you as a dependent? A dependent is anyone who has someone else pay 51% of their expenses. That does include rent, that does include food, insurances, health insurance, and all that. So For you guys, odds are you're going to say yes. And ask your parents if you're not sure. It's going to be a while before that will change, but it could be really quick for some of you. So if they're paying most of your expenses, you're a dependent. All right, the next question here, number 5, is what were your 2022 or current year taxable wages? Okay, now this is something you will find on your W-2 form. In fact, you'll find it in box 1 of your W-2. In fact, a lot of these questions for you can only be found on your W-2, and that'll be the only tax form you're going to need. So for you individually, you would look on your box 1 of your W-2 and put that number in there. Now, you may not have your W-2 with you, and if you don't, you can make an estimation. Just think, how many hours a week do I typically work? How much do I get paid per hour? Multiply that by 52 or 50 or how many weeks off. If you have a reasonable estimate here, we're going to be fine. I just want you guys to kind of see what it's like. Now, for those of you who didn't work during 2022 or the year you're filing your taxes, you can either put 0, say I did not work, or you can just estimate if you did work, how much would I have earned? And that'll give you a good idea of how much you paid in taxes. So you go ahead and answer this right here. What were your taxable wages? And you put that number. But remember, you'll find it in box 1 of your W-2. All right. How much unemployment income did you collect? Well, if you got unemployment benefits, you would have collected income from it. Odds are you're a teenager not getting unemployment benefits, so that is a very highly likely 0 for you guys. All right, on the next one, what were your federal withholdings? Now, withholdings is one of the buzzwords that you guys are going to find at the very bottom of this document. What are withholdings? So we already covered dependents, which make sure you guys are filling that out too when you turn this paper in. But with withholdings, your dependents, remember, that's anyone that you paid that has someone else paying 51% of their living expenses. So that can be a elderly parent, it could be a disabled sibling, or even a disabled aunt or uncle. Anyone you're paying 51% of the expenses is a dependent. A spouse is not a dependent. So right away, when we get to personas and you go, hey, my spouse doesn't work, they're my dependent. They are not. You never want to call them that in real life. You are just cruising for a bruising if you do. So don't. Spouses are not dependents. All right, but what are withholdings? Withholdings are money that is withheld from your paycheck. So if you get a paycheck and you look at it and say, hey, I'm supposed to be paid $500, but it says I paid $90 in income taxes. That's what your withholding would be. So withholdings is money taken out of your paycheck and withheld to pay your taxes in the future date. April. All right, so that's 2 of them right there. So let's go ahead and go back up here. What was your federal withholdings? Now you can find this in box 2 of your W-2. So speaking of this W-2, let's take a quick look at what a W-2 looks like. So I have one for a persona that you guys are going to see later. So don't write any of these numbers down now. But when you get this, you're going to have your social security number. This is a fake one. That's why you don't need to bring in your W-2. You'll have your name and addresses and all this. But in box 1, that's a box of 1, it'll say how much you were paid. But in box 2, it'll show your federal income tax withheld. That's how much money the government took out of your paycheck to pay your taxes. This is the amount of money that you could possibly get back. It'll also include your FICA taxes, that's your Social Security and Medicare taxes that were withheld, but sadly for boxes 4 and 6, you're really not getting those back until you're old or disabled, if that's the case. So box 1 and box 2 are your main boxes. You'll include state taxes, but that comes later, and we'll find out that for you, this is going to be really easy for you to fill in. All right, so back to our form. So what were your withholdings? Those of you who don't have your tax forms, you can kind of put that maybe at like 15%, maybe 20%. So just think every $10 you paid 2 in taxes. That's kind of a reasonable guess that you guys can just estimate for now. All right, so for number 7, do you have any state withholdings? Well, your persona does not live in Florida, but as of you watching this video, if you do live in Florida, your income taxes are Zero. Because Florida doesn't have an income tax. So right away for number 8, you're putting 0. All right, we have now done the hardest part of the form. For you as a teenager and probably even through college, these are the only questions you might need to answer and actually look up and have a correct thing. Now, I'm letting you estimate for this assignment. Make no mistake, you cannot estimate when you're doing your real taxes. You must go to your W-2, find the right answer. Just like when you do your persona, but I'll show you how to do that in a later video. So let me show you how all these other questions work and how easy this can really be for you. Remember, not every question has a numerical answer. It might not apply to you, like the state withholdings. You have none if you live in Florida. The number of dependents, is that anyone that you provide 51% of living to? No, 0. Number of kids you have under 17, maybe 0. Number of full-time students between the age of 17 and 23, 0. Number of children under 13 who receive child care. That's a tricky one, but you can go ahead and put the correct answer there. Most of you, 0. Total child care expenses. Well, that could be 0 too. You do have to prove this and have receipts. This would be like daycare expenses to really deduct. Did you receive and actually this is if the government provided you with something. Did you receive child care in 2002? Well, that's the government gave you money for it, so 0. Do you have any taxable interest? This may apply to some of you guys, and you'll get a 1099 INT. I'll go over how to find this form later if you have taxable interest. But if you've got no interest from your bank, they did not send you this form, 0. Qualified dividends, that's dividends or money you got from a tax, 0. If you have stocks, you can have short-term and long-term. If you sold them and made money off of them, or losses, you can actually take away or get a deduction and get more money back if you lost money. You can go ahead and put those numbers here, okay? And we will have forms like a Schedule D and a 10 or an 8449 form to fill out there. All right, did you receive an IRA or pension? No, you did not. Social Security benefits, very unlikely, but in a few cases you might have. You would get a form for it, an SSA 1099. Pretty rare thing for most of you guys. Other income. All right, this is, did you win any prizes, awards, gambling winnings, not reduced by losses. And if you did, you will have to pay taxes on that. That's right. When you win a prize, you have to pay taxes for it. So do keep that in mind. If that happened, you would have a different form, which would be a W-2G. And we'll look at that later in your persona, but you don't need that yet. How much alimony have you received? Well, to get alimony, you need to be married and divorced, and a judge or a settlement award you income from them. So if that happened, which is common but not too terribly common, then you could actually get payments for that, and you would have to declare that on your taxes. So remember, alimony, which some of you guys might be witty going, hey, that's one of the vocab words. Alimony is money paid to a divorced spouse after a divorce that is awarded by a judge or a settlement. Okay, so are you your child attending the first 4 years of college? Unlikely that you necessarily are now going away to college, not taking like dual enroll, but you could put yes there. How much did you pay last year in tuition and fees? Well, most of you guys are still here in public schools, so that is very likely to be 0. All right, total student loan interest. Well, to have interest, you need to have a loan and start paying it off. You're probably 0 at this point. How much did you spend on your mortgage interest? You probably don't have one, so 0. Property or real estate tax payments. That would be a 0. Because we have 1098 form if you need it, but we'll go over that with the persona document there. How much did you make is cash or check donations to charity? Keep in mind, if you put a little bit of money in a bucket or something like that, you need a receipt from that organization to prove it. So if you're like, well, I don't have the receipts, then you can't claim it. So you need a receipt from the organization. Also, you can have non-cash donations, and keep in mind, non-cash donations can be a audit trigger, so do be careful about those. So, and you need a receipt. So if you donate like a car or a couch to Goodwill, something like that, they can give you a receipt for the donations, and it could be a deduction on your taxes. But be careful because you really have to prove the amount you donated. Are you eligible participate in a retirement plan. Almost all of you guys working are eligible for a 401k or something like that at your job. Not all of you have it. It's up to your work. But if you work for a major business or company, very likely. So you can put yes there. What did you plan to, or what did you contribute to your IRA in 2022? Well, if you're like, I don't know what an IRA is, then the odds are zero. Do you have any medical expenses that are substantial and you have receipts for and have not been reimbursed? You might be able to claim that, but that often gets you nothing back. All right. How much alimony have you paid? Again, alimony, you have to be divorced and a judge say you owe your divorced spouse money. So that would be probably zero for you guys. Your net business income and loss. So that needs a 1099 MISC. And in that form, you can say, here's how much I spent on my business, and here's how much profit I earned, and here's my total earnings. And if you made profit, you do have to pay additional taxes for it. But if you have a loss, you could deduct that from your taxes too. So you need to have your own business to do this, and probably a form like that. All right, I'm going to give you guys a warning right here before we get down and make sure you understand your vocab. Estimated federal taxes paid and estimated state taxes paid. You probably have photocopies, so it's black, but I made it bright red, and I'm calling these your go to jail questions. Because if you answer these wrong, you will have a refund that is so ridiculous and outlandish, it is enough that not only could trigger an audit, not only could go ahead and have penalties and you'd have to pay it back, but like it could be egregious enough to send you to jail. So let me explain what these are because they're worded poorly, but I'm telling you how they're worded on the tax forms, but let me explain what they mean. These types of taxes, do not confuse them with your withholding on your W-2. A lot of you guys go, federal taxes, that's on my W-2. That is not on your W-2. What this should say, and you may say, why don't you change it? Because this is how it actually is phrased. Estimated federal taxes paid. This is additional taxes that you would have to pay for usually some sort of business or investment property or dealings that you have with the government. So this would be additional checks that you are writing to the government to pay tax bills that are owed. Same with state taxes, extra checks you are writing to the state government to pay for additional taxes that are owed. So if you're sitting there going, I didn't write any checks to the government specifically to pay extra taxes, then you put zero. I'm telling you that this is fairly rare for people to do, and you would know if you did this. So put zero here right now, and if you're smart, you put a message, put zero, don't put anything besides zero, because your personas, it is a zero. I call this the go to jail question because a lot of people will say, we'll put up at the top on, let me just be very specific with you guys. For number 7, what were your taxable withholdings? Well, some of you guys, that's like $25,000. But then if you go ahead all the way down here to these questions and put $35,000, you'll get all of that refunded back. So if you pay $25,000 in taxes and you get a refund of like $35,000, how'd you get more back than you paid? You can't. And if you did, then you probably committed tax fraud and you could go to jail. So one quick way to fail this assignment is to get these questions wrong. So I already told you, put a big zero for all of these, and I'll remind you again later, and put a note, some words here saying, put zero for this, put nothing else, you'll go to jail if you don't. Because these are odd questions that people like to duplicate their tax payments on, and you're saying that you paid $50,000 in taxes when you really paid $25,000. That is a big problem. All right, you will have to answer this, but this will be later. And let's make sure we understand a few other vocab terms in our forms for the next one. So we know alimony, a mortgage. A mortgage comes from the French phrase debt contract. That is a loan often for a property like a house. So a very long-term, large loan. So when they talk about mortgage interest, that's the interest on a loan for a house. So that's what a mortgage is, a loan, a very long-term loan, often for a house. Now, IRAs, that's individual retirement, 401k or 403b, these are types of retirement accounts. So in the questions, it asks about IRA income or retirement contributions. That's what these things are. These are retirement accounts that you can start investing in right now to start getting that interest. They also have great tax benefits, which is why they're important to know when we're talking about taxes. Lastly, or second to last, we have dividends. We covered dividends. That's, remember, if you own a stock and the corporation for that stock earns profits, they divide the profits up amongst the shareholders and pay it to them. Dividend, divide. So those are profits from owning stock. So dividends are profits from owning stock. And lastly, we have interest. Interest is money paid often for a loan. So it's two things, and we'll get into a lot more later, but interest is if I borrow money, I need to pay the person I borrowed from back plus more. And that's called the interest over time. Interest also is what a bank or an investment could pay you if you go, hey, bank, hold my money. I'll come back and get it later. Well, that bank's going to loan your money out, charge other people interest for it, and then pay you some interest back, and you can make that money. So when we talk about interest income, that means if you have money in a bank account, you should be smartly investing it to earn interest, and you need to claim that on your taxes. Okay? So, and a few questions that'll mine for you. These are often questions that you guys get wrong, and parents and other people are like, you can't do that. Let me give you the right answers to these. For you, can you still file your taxes if you're a dependent? So if you live at home and your parents still pay a majority of your expenses, can you file your taxes? The answer is unequivocally yes. Yes, you can, and you should. If you don't, all that money you would get back from the government, they keep. You don't get it back. That's it. You lost it. It's gone. Don't do that. Okay, and the second question is, can you still file your taxes if you're under 18? The answer is, again, yes. Yes, you can. Now you might need to have a bank account or talk to your parents about where that refund money is going to go, but you can absolutely file your taxes if you're under 18. Now, you should have all this done, but the big takeaway here is this, okay? Pay attention. If you go to file your taxes, like for you, a high school student, odds are you got to answer, are you single, married? Are you head of household? So be done with that. What was my age? I put like 17, 18. Can someone claim you as a dependent? Yes. What were taxable wages? I look at my W-2. I look at box 1. I fill that number in. How much unemployment income? 0. Federal withholdings? Oh, I look at box 2. I read the number and fill that in. And then I put 0. And then guess what I do for every other question? Zeros. I've now answered all the questions that you will need to put on your taxes. Pretty easy. I hope it works well. All right, well, good luck with this video and your form. The next video is going to show you how to do it for your persona. Bit harder stuff, and I will see you in that installment.